Now, there we go. Y'all can all hear, see, and realize that we have ourselves a Wild Boys game at a normal-ish time, too. 7:17 if you're Central, or just around 8:30 if you're on the other side of the world. U.S., excuse me. God forbid the other side. Too many time zones for me to keep track of. But outside of the random mishaps and timing, we have ourselves a game, and I think that it should be a lot better than people expect, because let's be honest, so far statistically 5.2 has not been the same team that put belt to ass in everyone in the regular season and then struggled in the postseason. They've had, yes, they're winning their games, but they're all built on these barely winnings. We're praying for miracles kind of wins. These are not wins of dominance. They're not wins of even really good wins. They're questionable at best against questionable teams. You went max rounds against, for God's sakes, out of all people, Team FVR. Do not get me wrong, they're not a bad team, but they are not the team that you lose. Why is... Clicky click. There we go. Excuse... Let me click my shit, bro. What? Why can I not click into my game?
10 seconds to insertion.
There we go. I don't know what that was. But we're back, and we have finally a game that's actually windowed. It's real. It's real, I say. It's the equivalent of my shitty One Piece joke. The workable game. It's real. Anyways, back to the actual game we do have at hand, which should be, I think, a bit of a banger. I do currently have Nebula winning, which might be a bit of a hot take. Or scolding, depending on who you are. But you know what? It's what I enjoy. I think I really do trust Nebula a lot more than other teams do, and maybe it's trust, maybe it's a bad idea, but I have my thoughts of them, and we do at least see the first one go the way of 5.2. Ixting can generally be a relatively reliable force in the actual fights, but it can range pretty wildly from him. Always about those first picks, though. The entries can mean so much, just in terms of how you have that tone setter of a game. You really do want to have it. You want to have those first couple of picks go your way, because then you look strong, you feel strong, and you're going to come into, you know, your second round, even if you lose, saying we had those first picks, we're on the right track. That is, I guess, the absolute best, in my opinion. Also, I don't have chat pulled up. Hold up. Docs. First one does... Oh, another one. Excuse me. Foreign finds his pick. Maybe someone that you don't really think and associate with the side of 5.2, but he's also been on quite a few teams, actually, in terms of E-subs and everything. One of the highest, if I'm not mistaken. Your journeyman's journeyman, if you will. Actually had relatively good success while doing it. Is one of the higher win rates for being on so many teams. Something always to look at. Are you going to pick him to be your first player? No, but if you want a reliable man, he's a good one. Yikes. Well, we're with a 5v2 in hand. In stretch, actually finding a pick. Maybe the more unexpected part of that, but I have my significant doubts if this one is even really a game. It should be packed up. As long as you don't see a Blackbeard go crazy into a good C4. More damage on a Matrix, but not the final pick you wished. Instead, you're going to wait and you're going to wait. Hope to find it eventually, and you're going to miss a shot. You're going to give it Matrix at least a little bit of fire to the flames. Make that 2 pick. Suddenly, you have an even game in your hands, all because of a little bit of a mishap against a shield. Blackbeard has always been, since his rework, one of the best ops in the game, and he continues to prove it time and time and again. The aggressive swing from Tom the Bomber makes him found. Now the advantage goes the other way around. And how the tables have turned is you currently do have yourself an even harder game to even try to fight and win. In a 2v2 with his shield, another one found from Dre, one of the newer players on the squad, but he finds a double to end it off. It seems that early on we have ourselves one very mainstay team. 5.2 had that strong part, but struggled against the shield, the same shields that they love to abuse. Not tonight, I suppose. Twitch. I don't know. Hold on. Why don't you talk in chat for Twitch? I don't know if mine's working or not. Pinks is talking. Shit. Is my chat not working? Am I gonna have to? I might have to rely on. I might have to pull up my iPad. Oh, yikes! Come on. Don't like we have to pull up my phone. Screw it. Twitch, here I come.
And defuse bombs.
And not really the greatest way to do it, but we have a screen. Get ready to drink a lot of water. All right. Or wanted at this point. Also, this should be, for all intents and purposes, a doubleheader. Back-to-back, same teams. The second map should be on Bank, and hopefully with maybe a different overlay. I don't know, we'll see. But it should be a back-to-back game. Same teams. A little bit of a weird way to go, but you have yourself like a mini BO3 almost. And both of them are relatively impactful in the standings. I think overall, if I'm not mistaken, it's not the craziest start, but I do like it more than, you know, a lot of other people in terms of how you could have gone for games. Nebula 5.2 is what I'd call close, but neither of them are exactly top tier. With all due respect to OP and his group. Actually, quite a few groups that OP runs, but as much as I love the man and congratulations on his marriage, he isn't exactly fielding an Obey level team here. Have they gone to playoffs? Yes, actually. They snuck in a pretty big upset against the side of Obey. But other than that, they haven't really been the strongest contenders for the most part. I think as a leader, OP is pretty consistently liked and well received. Extinct as a C4 in hand. Hey, we got some level of... I can see my stuff. Yeah, now I see Twitch. Yippee, I think. We'll see. I'm on 120-second delay tonight, so it might be a bit of a come and go. We will certainly see is what I'd say. But with a chance in hand, and so far a very slow start for the side of Nebula, I think they're perfectly fine with it. However, I mean, that last run came down to the last seconds, but Vixel's going to find at least the first one onto Foreign. Always a good pick when you get rid of the Warden. Give you a little bit more versatility here when you are eventually going to have to go against a pretty annoying group of people. And being able to use your flashes is always going to help. Having only two is maybe a little bit surprising, but should have all the value nonetheless. Yeah, there are other shots going on the other side here. Vixel does go down in connector. Excuse me, electrical is more accurately called. Extinct finishes. Gets you that first bring back pick, if you will. A little bit more of a chance here to win and fight, but Dre found pretty immediately in a C4 that he can keep in his hand, but instead traded up by Kuwak as everyone's going down. Matrix with one more in a stretch, though. The swing in from him. Matrix going to find two now, leaving just Tom the Bomber in a 1v3, but damage isn't going to be enough here. He's going to have to find a pick, but Matrix cannot be stopped with the shield. The dominance continues from the man. Good lord. That'll be, what, 6 now? Yeah, it seems that we have our crack addict or player of the week on the board here. We will certainly see, but at least early on, we have Matrix taking himself in the much more top dog position. 6-0 is obviously a bit of a brutal start, but with no real way to ban the Blackbird in this first map, it might help when you play Bank in your second map, but until then, you are left a little bit high and dry, which maybe isn't the greatest way to go. But
Attackers need to locate.
I think there's still a good chance of some good luck here. All you need is just one round, and I think 5.2 can get the wheels turning. This team has always kind of felt as what would normally be a regular season demon, one of the greatest records ever in the regular season in SSL, SXL, and SWL. But as of recent, I don't even know if I'd call it recent issues, just recent how they played, it has never been that same level, which does hurt a little bit, I'd say. It is not the same feeling. It's not even the same hope you have, but you live and you move on is what I'd say. Early on, though, I wouldn't expect anything crazy. Even long term, I wouldn't expect anything crazy in the setups. It's just not how they run, honestly. It's always been a pretty bland base in terms of how it's played out. Yeah, I will say it's a little funny that our doubleheader is literally the exact same players, exact same teams, least it's a different map, so you get yourself a pseudo BO3 before playoffs really kick in for any league, actually. Is the only one we have going is Black Hole right now. They're finishing their grand finals this Monday. It should be redemption against Wild Boys. I will probably be there to cast. That'll be a banger. Until then, however, we have ourselves a pretty good run overall. Matrix once again with the shield in hand. It feels that he's been unstoppable since then, but Vector is going to find the first pick. Despite being pretty consistent, with Vixel another on hand, Tom the Bomber a little bit slower than expected. He's generally the bleeding heart, not the bleeding, the beating heart more accurately, of this team. But so far, seems that nobody can really get it going, and somehow Stretch has more picks than Tom the Bomber. And Extinct is top fragging. Extinct is probably more known for his rank adventures and being pretty consistently a top 35 champ and really, really good in those opening days. Almost always consistently in the race to #1 champ, but in League he's had varying levels of success. Stretch is going to find at least one more into Vixel. Make it a little bit easier, but at the end of the day, this is going to be a hard fight to win in the best case scenario, but in a 1v4, it's all but over as 5.2 cannot keep up right now with Nebula's shield play. It has felt just like an oppressive style that forces gameplay, forces these hard fights, finished by Vector. Matrix might find his first death, but it won't matter with a trade out in hand. And easily one of the best starts you can have. I think actually in both of these leagues, Wild Boys and SXL, their standing is the same. No, because SSL or SXL, whatever they're called now, is currently 1 week ahead, so not that actually. Overall, I mean, certainly the greatest start you could ask for, and this is, I think, a little bit demoralizing when you realize you have one more game after this. It's a pretty tough thing to try to get together. I mean, with no real way to, I think, pull this one out in a good fashion, you're hoping for a 3-3 half, and even then, I think the momentum is so hard to swing at this point. 3 rounds in a 3-set rotation is so hard to win. You've had 3 different chances to go at your best sites. None of them have worked out, and this shield just feels demoralizing to fight against. And guess what? You get rid of the Blackbeard, the Blitz comes in. You have literally never, you didn't even solve the problem. You made it slightly better. You know, instead of having an AR in hand, he's going to have a flashlight of a bajillion lumens. Which, is that really better? Arguably not, I think, for this current playstyle. Because I think that we're going to see Matrix just kind of snowball his own gameplay. He's going to see the gap, he's going to see a play, he's going to run in, he's going to find more picks. Or opts to switch to a fuse. Maybe not the pick expected. How dominant those shields were. I'm a little bit surprised you're going to see it change, but I trust the man of Matrix, and he at least, I think, has the trust in himself and his team to work something fun out. But I will admit it's a little bit more questionable than what felt like pretty easy pick. 5.2 has just been so, I don't know. I mean, they haven't held their own. Wolves beat them really well. That was probably one of their better games overall, but it just has never felt like this team, as of recent, has been able to keep any level of consistency. Actually, a very amazing use of the fuse two-brow, as those pucks can come in just after the two-brow charge and get rid of it, giving you the wall at least. Now you have probably one of the, not what I call newer pickups, but if I'm not mistaken, an emergency sub-in of Evan Wilson. Maybe a little bit too on the nose for a name, but he could always prove himself early on, but he, in fact, is not, as Vixel finds something, so does Kuwakin. You end yourself with a very, very questionable situation, and how did... No, it's because you hit the wrong side. Ah, that makes more sense. The first swing comes out, but Vixel finds it pretty easily as a whiff goes on. Matrix with one more. Vixel finds a double, but all down to stretch. It should be over as Vixel finds himself 3. The alarm bell is set in as 5.2 can't find any real gap here, any real hope so far, as Domination seems to set in. Remember, don't worry if you like this game, you have one more after this of the exact same teams. So if this is 7-0, you might have a very fast second game. I also probably will not change the overlay, which is like a whoopsie daisy, but on the other hand, I don't want to have to go through changing because none of it's configured right now.
Defenders, protect your bombs from being
I will say, it is a little sad. Even before my time, even when I just came in here, only this April, they were unbeatable in regular season. Everyone they ran through was almost always this dominant win. They got close, but I think their regular season kind of just got overshadowed by a consistency of regular season that never turned into wins. It's like what people when they think the Ravens and the Bills, you see them consistently in those playoffs, in those conversations, but they never won. They never truly won that big win. They never got that prize money. But I think the bigger issue is what did they get out of that? They're arguably one of the best teams at their prime. But the issue is they got overshadowed in what was an amazing season for them of undefeated play by one team led by Blita and Popeye and Quex that dominated, not dropping a single overtime, not even dropping a single map in the entirety of a season, all of playoffs. We've never seen dominance like that, and that is always, I think, something to be not even sad about, but you were supposed to be the dominance. You got beat by Wolves, who got beat by Redemption, who then realized that there was levels to this. Redemption, current Spartans, more accurately. And we do see the plant come down as the plant is hopefully going to be finished by the Monty, but shield with C4s be damned. It seems to be going down as Kuwak got himself a post plant. The melee won't work. Kuwak finds 2 now with the glass in hand. That smoke sight has always been relatively useful, but he seems to find consistent value in it today. The swing comes in. Tom the Bomber finds a little more damage going his way. Matrix feels free to just kind of sit on the shield, hold his moment, just keep waiting for his time, and he eventually finds one on the 4-in, but in a 5v1, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter how good you are. Extinct has this one, sadly, I think, out of his control. Finished off by Vixel, but it seems that past that, after those first 2 rounds, this game is already over. At this point, I'm just struggling to see. This is Wild Boys League, so Nighthaven Labs BO1 week 2 of the regular season. Probably what I'd call the biggest game or games right now. Casters are pretty consistently there. You have quite a few coming in, including Sino himself. Say what you will about the man. And what he can have sometimes is, I've heard, quote unquote, a questionable relationship with console owners, but he's a damn good caster, and I think seeing him back in console is always a relatively good thing. I think also Wild Boys League is pretty attractive in terms of leagues. It's the biggest. It has arguably the only one with real social media, or at least a chance to try to find social media presence. It's trying to, but it's going to get production soon. It's going to get observers. It's getting everything that the European leagues and Hyper Series always was, which is a consistent, high-powered, high prize-winning pool that, to be entirely fair, out of the top 10 most or biggest D-tier leagues in Liquipedia, so out of all of those leagues, almost every single one in those top 5 is entirely console. This one is the second highest in the entirety of console, behind European League. I want to say it's RSX, but they're currently only once a year from what I know. This is yearly, or this is year-round. They are arguably the biggest, at least in terms of prize pool, console league, which should always bring in the viewers, should always bring in, I think, some level of hype, no matter who you are. And also big names have started to trickle in. We've seen players like Jugo, players like Glaiba pretty consistently play, but more come in day over day. But, excuse the yawning. The midnight oil was kind of burned today. As end of the week, you know how it is sometimes. But we have ourselves 2 games, and you'd hope for maybe a better one, but this is not looking to be so. You're hoping for a beautiful one, but we'll certainly see. We have to hope for just some type of resurgence here from 5.2 and around. They need it. Well, Tom the Bomber not doing what he needs to. Stretch is going to take the fight, at least bring back the advantage to at least an even game. Something more winnable within turns and factors. And seems out of all things, Stretch has taken the lead as one of the dominant players of the game. I don't think anyone in their right mind would have expected that, but you take what you can find, you take what you can get, and you hope for this to happen. But Vixel is going to keep finding his value. There's only so much one man can do here, and you need to see someone else come in here. You need to see Evan Wilson. You need to see Tom the Bomber come in. No kills isn't going to mean much. When Stretch goes down, you're forced to go for the aggressive swing. We have shots on both sides. Vixel at least finds himself a death and more in the grave, but finished off. And I'm no man to say any game is quite clean-cut and ever over, but this game was supposed to be, in my opinion, a close enough game where I heard predictions on both sides were saying like a 7-4 win, 7-5, a barely, we scrape it out in regulation. This isn't a regulation win, this is a belt-ass win. This game isn't even going to last 35 minutes. Unironically. There's a real chance that this game ends in less than 35 minutes, and there were like 12 timers going. This game is maybe, if this ends in 7-0, this will be the fastest BO1 I've ever casted. That actually went all the way full. That wasn't a forfeit. And I've casted literally almost 200 matches now, give or take. I have casted what feels like almost twice or 3 times a day, 4 months. And this is the fastest thing I've ever seen. It's so demoralizing if you're 5.2 and you have another match to play. You still have Bank to go against, and that is arguably one of your worst maps. Nighthaven is supposed to be one of your best. Nebula, yes, it's good for them, but you're supposed to be the regular season champions. Every single time in regular season, we drag you around as the true, no one can beat them, unstoppable force, and you pray to see it come in to the same level in finals, in grand finals and playoffs, but every single time it hasn't ended that way. But people still believe in them because of those regular season flashes. Because we see how coordinated they can be, how smart they can be as a team, how well led they can be, despite Stretch sometimes not having the craziest numbers. But we're not even seeing that tonight. We're seeing a side that is weak to play. They're not going aggressive enough. They're not winning their trades. They're not even winning the basic fights that you have to win just to survive. They're losing every plausible fight in the book. And it looks even worse when you really do see the scoreboard. You have Stretch going the highest kills here. Stretch, Tom the Bomber is on your team. Extinct, Foreign. These players that are absolutely great players at almost every other team. Foreign, who's arguably one of the more popular journeymans. He's been on what feels like 8 or 9 teams now at this point, but he consistently does pretty good. He's an above average to middle of the pack player, but you can consistently fall on him to do his job. He's 1-6. Extinct, arguably one of the better ranked stars in the entirety of NA when he's in these early seasons, in these early moments. A great player who has generally been the second frag for this team is 3-6. Tom the Bomber led this team so far, arguably one of the best costs globally, one of the best KDs globally. Instead, they have been useless. They have been nothing so far this game. And then yes, you do have an ESOB of Evan Wilson, which is a bit of an unk pick if you do know. It doesn't matter. Even with this roster that, yes, it doesn't have the best players, but it still has so many good players. It still has so many good people and talent. Why is it struggling so much to just find a round against a team that is kind of weak? Vixel is good. Matrix is amazing. Since his grand finals, he's been pretty consistently way above average for his normal position. He was taken, and he's known as supposed to be that 4th or 5th man to finish a roster in the leader of YN. And after Gulia kind of led them to a pretty insane grand finals win to end them off in a farewell tour, it feels like all those players have kind of stepped up to be better in their own right. They've been consistent on the good teams, and that is always what you want to see. Shot's going to go out. Vixel, Extinct, all going to find something. Stretch finds at least 1 body. Make it 2. Evan Wilson goes with 1 more. And maybe, just maybe, you're not going to die in a 7-0. It's going to be a 7-1. Seems every single time I say it's going to happen, it won't. Hold their breath, hold their tongue quite for a little bit. Bit of a missed drone might actually give you a slight chance. Always possible, especially if you miss drones with stretch here. It could be a shot, could be the take. You at least find 1-4, and 2v3 again is Dre's holding probably the most aggressive angle here, forcing a fight that isn't even easy to win on his end on the verticality, but no C4. It looks like the plan is pretty well set in place in terms of who's going where. It's going to be a backside take. But I struggle to really find hope. This is the same team that couldn't even win a round in arguably one of their best sites. I mean, on the attack, they might be good. They're not going to pull a Zave 5-6 round comeback here to pull it back. Dre's going to find at least a little bit of damage on the Tom the Bomber. Try to get a little bit closer as Matrix is the lowest here by far, but my question is, doesn't matter. It feels that every single time these numbers, these stats have been where they should, it's just not going to be there. At least one found by Tom the Bomber. Maybe finally they have a round in hand. It took a long time. It took a lot of failure, but they at least have one marginal piece of, you know, rounds of wins to work with. But even if you win here, even if you do finally find yourself at least some closing argument where you're not going to be flawlessly beaten, is it any better? Matrix at least finds one, though. He's going to make sure it's not going to be an easy one to find. The prone swing might give you more value than expected. Eventually, Stretch finishes Matrix, and at least one round goes away at 5.2. But even then, I do always wonder. Even if you win here, even if you go a couple more rounds, are you going to pull 6 straight, now 5, to get yourself even a sliver of a chance of a win? And my thing is, it doesn't matter how, these games are not connected. Yes, they're different leagues. Yes, they're still important to each other, but they're not the end all be all. You know, if 5.2 wins here, it still looks bad. If you lose 6 rounds straight to a team that is arguably just barely above 500 every season, what does it say about you? You're supposed to have arguably one of the highest paid rosters in general, in terms of pay per win. You're supposed to have a roster that's pretty consistently dominating the regular season. It's the same reason they keep still getting orgs to sponsor. But if you can't win against Nebula, what does that say long term? What does that say about this team's future? For reality, 5.2 has been around for a long time. Stretch has made it go much farther than I think anyone ever expected from any other console team. They've been around for almost as long as the same originals. They've been around for as long as Void. They've been around for a lot of these old rosters for what was Jaegers and now Obey and now Wild Boys. But no matter how you put it, it's just, I don't know. I think that as a team, you're looking for something more. You're looking for just a sliver of hope in a haystack. You're looking for the needle in the haystack to give you just some breathability. When you realize, if I lose 7-1 here, we have a map that is supposed to be our best, and now we got to go play one of our worst maps after they just beat us absolutely absurdly well. Because I think the big issue has been entries. Entries has been at least an issue on the side of Nebula, but it doesn't matter. The entries haven't mattered. It doesn't matter that you lose the first pick, because every single time they'll crawl it back. Every single time in a 4v2, 3v2, they'll always lose these picks, lose these important numbers, and they'll just go back to what they are. Which doesn't really give you the most hope for a team. Maybe SXL can prove a little bit better. Good shots in the way of Extinct, trying to find some damage. Finished off, though, as the first pick does go the way of Nebula. Finds one more onto Evan Wilson, who has, in my opinion, been relatively good and can be amazing as a player, as a prospect, but never had that real passion, if you will. Maybe he has a chance to bring himself into his own on what is one of the more unexpected ways to do it, if he does do it at the place of Nebula. No hate on the man if you can find it there. Getting into your own. Maybe it takes a little bit different for everyone. Matrix can opt to go upstairs here in the second floor push. Only one man upstairs. The odds of a run-in are a little bit smaller, but you never know. Overall, I do question the efficacy sometimes of a plan like this. It's not even the efficacy of the plan, it's the efficacy of this team. they are supposed to be a top 10 team pretty consistently day in, day out. They're struggling against arguably a middle of the pack, if not below average team. They squeak into playoffs, so you're losing to like the definition of like a wild card team. This is like losing to the Colts without Daniel Jones, with like Joe Flacco. At the end of the day, who cares? You still have one more game, so maybe the chance is there. But I will say, at least that we see consistency to some degree. We have polar opposites. The picks go the way in a 4v1, kind of a 3v1 here. It should be over as long as you played smart. Let's finish off by Matrix. After a long, not even a long fight, a relatively short fight, give ourselves the end of game 1 and a 7-1. And 5.2 go back to the drawing board for a game in just 12 minutes. We'll be gone for just a little bit. Well, we're back with a much shorter break time than I think anyone really expected. But, you know... we're back with a game. Yeah, it's certainly shorter break time than anyone else expected, but, you know,
Attackers need to locate and
we got it. We got ourselves at least a game. I'll give it that. No 8-minute break in between. Instead, it's like 4. Can't complain too much. Bands overall were pretty bland and basic as it goes. You know, just run it with what you have. I'm not certainly against the idea. Now, for all you just tuning into the SSL announcement. Wow, that's wild. Squirtle turning the tables. This disc. But there is a slight inkling of not even an issue, which has apparently come up. And I'll bring this up now as it is technically SXL League. There is a rumor going around that a lot of Wild Boys teams are considering not doing SWL SXL next year. Or next season, more accurately. And, you know, that might work, but I do have a little bit of worries long term about them. That is just a rumor, though. There's no real anything coordinated or organized. A couple of teams that just have their grievances with SWL or SXL or SSL, whatever you prefer the name to go by. Scissor's old league. That is what you can call it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's something to at least be spoken of. In the first pick, found my Kuwak as we're getting back to the game. Strong and early, but form with a beautiful shot off the SMG-12.
bomb located by attackers.
What? We got these kids are absolute demons with the fancy SMG in hand. And because you have Dokkaebi, you get those calls, you get all of that intel and all those cams pretty damn early here. A minute 30 left, and a bit of an interesting pick in terms of first sight, but I love the idea of something unique here, not just picking the same old, but being truly unique to what you do. Also, that might have been the most redundant hatch open on the planet. Well, not really, actually, because they're racing, but I don't know. That felt a little redundant, in my opinion. But I will admit, having a first floor hold as your option, like your main option here, is having a damn near full roam, is insane to start with. I love the play from Nebula here, and it requires so much confidence to even think of doing this, but I do have my worries. Eventually, Stretch does find at least the evening tie-up, if you will. There we go. Now, with hopefully a chance in play, Matrix at least finds 4 and giving yourself a nice 3v2. Now, some of you should be tuning a little bit late. Well, late for me. You guys have a beautiful 120-second delay to buy you a little bit of time. But 2v2 found, and suddenly, this has been probably one of the weirdest ways to play it out. Everyone that's kind of important is alive, but where the positioning lands is easily one of the weirdest I've seen for a basement site. One still above. You have Vixel in sight. You have both of them dropping the same hatch. And no one ever drops backside with 10 seconds left. It could all end with a beautiful impact or something. I think they know it too, as the swing's going to come out. 2v1 going to be found. Stretch can't do much here, as he can only look so many angles, but Vixel is going to find it and finish it relatively fast. Hold up. Mic lag. Oh, there we go. It's fine. Wasn't plugged all the way in. Maybe not the smartest. Hey, we have a fully plugged in mic now. Truly working on beautiful standards here. I wonder what there isn't even D2 standings. That's not cool. Zave X is...
Defenders, protect your bombs from being defused by attackers.
Where is Zave X? Okay, yeah, so... Sorry, I'm just looking through the quick little D2... Not what I call sarcophagus. That feels a little rude, but... D2 looks. SXL is kind of the only main D2 alive right now. For now. I'm not going to spoil anything quite yet going on to the Wild Boys League. Wink, wink. That might happen, of course. No, no guarantees. But
10 seconds left before insertion.
I think we're approaching a very near world where I'm a little bit worried about the future of SXL. I do think that SWL will probably be a big one overall. I think that if they can get a sponsor, if they can keep up with what has felt like not even inflation, but just a larger amount of sponsors from tournaments saying, hey, I can get more matches for my money that are sponsored just under one group. You know, I can pay for one tournament, or I can try to sponsor an even larger prize pool, and suddenly we can get this prize pool super far up. But we'll always see. We do see a window play relatively early on from the side of 5.2. Not an uncommon way to do it, but without a Sens, it is certainly a little bit less effective long term. This mirror always does tend to cause an issue, but if you can get someone maybe below, like a 0, maybe you can get a play with Twitch. We just having sort of pressure in a safe spot could generally get you this round, and generally get you the most important point, which is that little checkpoint there, if you will, of Janitor. Or you could always just go in with outside pressure coming in. That always works too. Well, the first wing's in the sight, and more likely the area of sight. Squared seems to be the target as Tom the Bomber makes his way in. But I think he has quite a bit of space to clear long term. He's going to find a little bit of damage to the ace. Yes, because... Yeah, I don't know. It's I honestly just haven't... They were literally back-to-back. I thought I had like 10 minutes. I had like 3 to switch, and I didn't have time to switch. It was incomplete, so I had to switch. But Kuwok finds 1. Gets themselves a 5v3. A little bit of a sizable advantage, and maybe even a hop out. Had all my excitements up. No. This is a better look. The best look will probably be when I finally get some... finally get teams to use map ban GG, which would be helpful. Vector does at least get himself one little bit more. The issue is always going to be this huge advantage that Nebula seems to find, finished off by the Rooney. I just wonder, is Vixel going to find value? Everyone here has found this consistent value, and it worries me so much in terms of what's next. It worries me that you can't even win these basic fights, and we already saw what last game looked like. It was a bad, bloody game where it just felt like no one could keep up with Nebula. Nebula was consistent. They were getting their trades. They were getting not even really good entries. They were pretty bad at entries, actually, but everything else was so perfect. Their comebacks. They were just playing everything how they're supposed to. Does this mean Nebula is a top team? Maybe not. But does this mean that 5.2 has fallen off and maybe it's time to worry? Yeah, it does. I think so far you are 9 in what? Yeah, no, 9-1 in rounds so far in this 2-map series. I mean, I want to give 5.2 the benefit of the doubt and say it's because of 1 sub, and you know that's it, but that isn't it. We know it isn't. 1 sub, yes, it's important. It is a big thing to lose a main player, but it doesn't equal this. And the new variable doesn't equate for all the change. Which also does make you kind of look at, you know, what's next for this team? I would love to say that the best case scenario and what should happen is Stretch steps down as maybe the full leader of this team in terms of IGLing and everything and playing the hard support and going to maybe manage the team. Sort of like how Heisey does, sort of like how Visel recently did, and he decided to give himself, just say, hey, I'm not what I used to be, but I still want to be with this team. I'll manage you guys, I'll still do bans, but I'm not going to be that starting force anymore. And that, I think, is the best thing that could have happened for that team of CC. And that is what I think needs to happen with 5.2 if they want to consistently be strong again. They need to be willing to give up. Stretch needs to be willing to let it go in terms of playing purely. If you can be a damn good manager, sure. He's already one of the better recruiters. Extinct is also going to find Kuwakas and yapping on about. We don't have that much of a pre-match. I'm trying to squeeze it all into one little neat broadcast, but it can sometimes get a little bit iffy. Never know when a first entry is going to be found, and never know who's going to pop off, but I will say Matrix. Also, Kino, what in the world are you doing? I don't know if this many rounds lost is just because of you, though. I don't know about that, but we'll see. Eventually, also, if I can get an observer, I can have no delay on my end, so I can talk to chat. Instead of, you know, what is current, which is I have a 120-second delay and I see chat super late. Now with one little bit in hand, and maybe what could be at least a... Why is this soft? That is not supposed to be soft. He also didn't really need to... I mean, he did, I guess, but that's just... Why is that soft? What possible use is there for that? Well, we'll see. Vixel's at least going to find one more and 4 and getting yourself a little bit more of an advantage, but it's... No, not to what you want to have. Is Stretch finds something, finds 2 actually, as Dre also goes down, and I'm never going to say 5.2 comeback after their first map, but maybe there's a little bit of light in this team. Maybe there's an actual hope for once. Maybe you can finally say, maybe, just maybe, this team has a chance at winning. I don't know if I'd call it likely. Let's be honest, this team has had serious issues, and winning an SXL would certainly help with what is a very shoddy loss, but I don't know if it'd be enough. Tom the Bomber finishes with Vixel, and this is where you really do start to have questions, I think, is you won, yes, but it is now, what, so it's 9-2? If you see another round here, yes, maybe there's a real chance they can go 1-1 on the night after a really bad start. But if you don't, then I just wonder what's left for the team. They'll be on. They'll still keep going, but do we really see them as the same thing?
Defenders, protect your bombs from being defused by attackers.
I always do try to have hope for teams, and I think there's a marginal amount here, mostly off the back of Tom the Bomber finally looking like a real option. I don't know if it was a bad map, if maybe he just was a little bit, you know, cold from playing, because I know he hasn't been the most consistent as of recent, but yikes, a bad start. You know what I just found crazy? That this is, I think, at least it could be, the biggest fall off of a team we've ever seen. We're still going to have a little bit more to go, so I'm not going to say anything, but 5.2 could go from having, like, the best round differential to barely scraping by. Or they have, like, a negative round differential. But they'll be winning. They'll go to playoffs with a negative round differential. I've seen it, like, twice. And one of them was in University League, which isn't even a thing anymore, I don't think. One more found for Extinct. I think certainly a better start and hopefully a better, more complete start for his team. One man popping off, I don't think is really going to get you much here in what feels like it needs to be a team effort. But, you know, we'll see. I will say, as I've been blabbering about, the weirdest pick of the night probably is we see the Oryx. Maybe not the op anyone expects with a very, very abysmal pick rate for a reason, but maybe there's a plan here. One of action. I do certainly question it, but you never know. Hear me out. Make it so his sprint is just like it sounds like a normal sprint, not like an Oryx. He needs a buff, badly. He needs multiple buffs. Okay. The round starts relatively slow after that first entry, and I do have some questions in terms of how well you're going to have a post lane here. The Goyos should be able to provide a level of safety for them if you don't get rid of them pretty quick here. And everything else just feels like it's going to delay well. Smoke's going to do enough. As long as he stays alive, he could very well have more value than any other person here. I don't know if I'd expect to find a pick in this pretty treacherous environment, but shots go out. Matrix ties it back up, getting rid of Foreign on the stairs. They're left down to a 4v4 with only 35 seconds left. Losing the mirror should not really help and will make it pretty hard to fight, but I don't know if it'll be enough at this point, as it feels everything is set in place. The C4s, the smokes, it's all there. Maybe a bit of an early C4, but the smoke should be able to buy as much time as they need. Vector is going to find one on the stretch. Get rid of the planner. With 10 seconds left, you're down to those final hopes, those prayers, but it won't matter as Nebula hold it down pretty well. Finished off by the smoke cloud of all things. Vixel finds one more at the very end. I mean, that was just time. The plan and the idea was fine enough. It was just timing. You took so much time to get into position, but you went so slow getting in it, like actually getting into sight. Which can be fine if you go slow into sight, but you need to have so much buffer room though. For fights, for anything that you need. But, you know, I guess work with what you have. I will say, I don't think there's a single team that's truly going to be able to beat the regular season peak of 907. I think that'll probably be the biggest prime we ever see, realistically, unless like Jinxie and, you know, Jinxie, Glybo, Stoppin comes back to console and they all duke it out. You know, Mingo comes and everyone's unwashed, but like, until then, it's, we'll see. I also do have some hope long-term for Siege now they finally have Vantage Studios being a subsidy. It's a good idea long-term. I mean, that's kind of the issue, is that the response in the actual, like, changes will come, but it takes so long. So it's kind of just one of those things that you're like, eh. But removing the in-between of an executive, at least for the most part, should speed up the game quite a bit in terms of changes and probably mean more content, or at least faster responses to feedback for content. Plus, not as much, business oversight. Leave the developers to kind of just do their own thing in a secluded forest, and then just kind of like be, hey, are you making money? Which, at the end of the day, that's all I care about. And I can never understand, like, the microtransactions don't make that much money. It's all about keeping your games viable long-term, but pennies early on, I guess, and not the long-term cash. That is investing for you. With large investors. But with the nades coming in, we do have hopefully a good shot here from Kuwak, but said he's going to find himself just a little bit of movement, but not too much other than getting rid of the fire extinguisher. Does help more than you think, I think, but it is nowhere near enough to justify what you have to do next. Because moving Kuwak isn't that important. I think you're going to learn very, very quickly that you have a lot to do and not a lot of time to do it. But maybe the gridlock's gonna help here. Sort of try to branch out and trap them in. It won't work as well as you'd think and hope, but at least a little bit done. But Vector with a beautiful shot on the stretch. It's one more nice advantage inside of Nebula. Anything they can get themselves a 4-2 would be perfect and beautiful, but instead Matrix is going to be found by Extinct, making it just a little closer. The shots go awry as Kuok turns entirely low. Vixel arguably even lower. The bodies start to bleed and left in a maybe not so viable situation as Extinct finds one more on the windows, as he's been what felt like unstoppable, but maybe he can pull something off here with Kuok on the end of this clash. Clashes have insane level of value they can provide despite being one person. So, always good to look out for that. We do have Kuok maybe making a move. Shot's gonna roll very, very quickly here, but no one finds even a sliver of damage. Just barely escapes the death of that Flores drone. It does count, just maybe a little later than hoped for. For now, they're going to make the move aggressively. He's going to swing. Extinct will find him instead, though, leaving just Dre and Kuok. Make it a beautiful start, though, for him. They're in a 2v1. He dies to the gridlock. What could have been is... He actually probably would have survived that as well. But by a millimeter, he dies. Oh. Bro, tonight's about to be so nice. I can sleep in a little bit.
Attackers need to locate and defuse bombs.
I will say, though, it will hurt a little bit. I'm gonna go AWOL for a full week. No internet. No communication with anyone. Don't worry, I'll have pictures to show after the fact. We'll see, though. I think a nice break is warranted after what has been probably 4 months of casting without any real break. Casting almost every day, every night. For, yeah, probably what? 3 or 4 months in a row now? 2 months of really hard grinding, but it's a lot of casting for almost little to no break. No disrespect to the man, but I didn't think Cena went this hard. And he's known as like kind of one of the fastest grinders in terms of getting up where he was, but I don't know, maybe it's the love of the game. We'll see. I don't think it'll fizzle out anytime soon, though, sadly, if you're not a fan. Probably be the biggest caster. Well, we'll see what Cino does, but most likely the biggest caster for all of console. Tom the Bomber, at least, is on what is a relatively successful app for him. Always been pretty good on the Nomad here, and finding himself cross is kind of his play, so giving yourself a little bit more focus on that and not having to worry about someone shooting you from behind is helpful. But all the odds in the favor of hopefully Nebula here, if you're looking for a 2-0 sweep. Certainly be the greatest way to go about it, but this game at least feels a hell of a lot closer than what we had originally. Four and Tom the Bomber should have themselves a relatively, I think, viable way into sight. It's not going to be easy by any means, but with a cracked Mira and with Dre not really being the strongest so far, it's a good shot. Kuok's going to at least get one kill into Extinct here. The aggression should show from Tom the Bomber as he's trying to use that sound of the gridlock to maybe mask his approach up, but nothing so far as Matrix goes down to 4 and bringing it back to a 4v4. Shots go pretty wild overall, but no real pick yet. Not one of those big advantage picks you really need to have. Not one of those that you really want to have if you're going to go for an execute. Instead, you're going to sit that even game, come what should be an execute possibly at this point. Well, I mean, in terms of the worst place to be, Dre would be it. Vixel is going to find Tom the Bomber, but finished off. It goes back to a 3v3 with Kuwak going down, but the biggest issue and the largest issue and the one that's most prevalent is the fact that you don't have anywhere near the advantage you need on Plant now. You have 20 seconds left. Plant's going to be going down any second now, but Stretch at least makes it a little bit easier, putting it in a 2v3. With Dre being found finally, late in the fights, they're finding those picks. But with one found by the side, Foreign goes down. Maybe you have a chance in a 1v1. It could all be done. You just got to not die, not do anything at all smart. And somehow evading every single shot. Pretty big throw there from Evan. I mean, dodge the bullets, be the Neo of your world, but it's got to hurt now. Could have been even half. What could have finally been that real hope that said, we got it. We made it there. We have a chance. And a pretty good one at that. Instead, not so much. I don't know. I mean, it just felt so out of place. Bands overall, though, are pretty damn, I guess you'd call average. Habana is easily one of the highest band ops on this, and then sometimes Chalet for the third band, but other than that, she's generally not even touched for bands. I don't know. I mean, Clubhouse to some degree, actually.
Defenders, protect your bombs from being defused by
I don't know, it's just one of those very niche bands. Everything else is pretty par for the course. Yeah. Now, with another big chance here and a swap to the sides, and Matrix back on the most oppressive shield you've seen so far. Is starting 6-0 on a shield is maybe a little bit too strong for anyone's taste, but it's just, it cannot be beaten. Hmm. .5v5 and a relatively slow start for the side of Nebula, but I think they're very relatively known for thorough droning. They don't like taking a lot of chances if they don't have to, so no big surprise, honestly. Maybe the shots come in, but I think once again, this is going to be pretty passive play from 5.2, is they had so much struggle in the first map on the side of the defense. I would be astonished if we see that same aggression. If we see even any aggression, really, after their bad start. Shots going out. Nothing too crazy. Just getting rid of those hatches. Getting a little bit more verticality going your way. Want to make it a little bit easier to find your fights. Extinct does find the first. He's been relatively consistent on the entries and also the top frag of the entire server. Excuse me, Vector was there, but about as close as it can get. Vixel probably has a reasonable chance here, but he's also got to find himself getting rid of his Goyo. He cannot let this sit around too long. With 2 Goyos there, if he doesn't get rid of it soon, this entire execute could be pretty damn near over, simply because they didn't get rid of the important stuff. Go aggressive on it. Make the move. Realize that it's all there. Well, almost all of it goes in one go. Maybe not perfectly, but there's one little piece left. Finish off. It'll be a close execute here if it's going to happen, but it can be done finally. But when I say close, you're going to see a close execute. Probably lasts 5 seconds, and with an echo here, this could get very iffy very fast. C4 as well. I mean, unless we see a drop from somewhere, I don't know if I see this one working out well. You've got to see some aggression early on, because otherwise this plant should be relatively easy to stop. A bad C4, honestly. But swings come in. Dre doesn't find the pick he needs. Matrix goes aggressive, but what won't matter is it ends, and they won't be able to get the plan off. One more round for 5.2, and maybe it's a real chance of winning.
Defenders, protect your bombs from being defused by attackers.
I'll be honest, I don't know. I had such weird expectations for the first game, and then immediately got sent into the pits of hell for the second game, so... You know? Well, the floor is in hand. It should help a little bit with the utility. You're trying to approach yourself a match point, but it's just not been the same team. Still relatively good overall, but I don't know. Huh. Extinct, however, relatively strong to start off. I mean, 8 and 4 is certainly a stat line to look at, and you have actually a beautiful save from Extinct. I don't think that could have been more perfect. On him, literally, but he still just barely saves himself, and verticality below the same spot isn't the greatest thing to have, but it's not going to hurt you long term either. Kuwak at least finds one more, but... Aggressive fight from the Extinct here. You want to find it. You do find Drag yourself back that pick. Give yourself a 4v4, but maybe even one more in store. All depending on how aggressive Vixel takes it. You know, Extinct, we know what he's going to do. He's going to go aggressive, but Vixel's going to find instead. The swing found out. You're going to have to re-swing here. Evan is going to have to go for the aggressive play if he wants it, but instead, it should be a relatively easy get up. Kuwak is going to go down to 4, and Evan with at least one more into Vector, and it seems that finally 5.2 have come into their own. Even a little bit later than hoped, and finally there's a chance there with a down left, just Vixel alone. Likely just Evan, the man to finish it off if he's lucky. Foreign's going to find more damage coming towards him. Vixel is kind of just caught in the middle of it all. But it's just so hard to predict what you're going to do here. You're listening for that rescue the second you hear it. But it was too late. It could have been right there. It could have been the perfect shot. But instead, you're going to have to just kind of wait and hope to see maybe another shot at coming towards you. Yeah, C4 fails pretty miserably. Vixel finds one. The plan's going to go down now is you're going to hopefully try to stop it here, but you don't know where the Echo is. The Montang shield should be able to help a little bit, but it doesn't. It gets barely through. 5.2, tie it back up. Get themselves at least one more chance here. Maybe get themselves close to that match point and finally a win.
Defenders, protect your bombs from being defused by attackers.
Bro, there's no way. Oh my god. Dre, I mean, he's been better than I expected. I'll be honest, I had a pretty bad stat line for him going in overall, but he's been not as bad. He's been at least doable to work with. I don't know if I can say that for some other players, but I personally think that the value being put in from Drew is pretty better. It's just better overall. There's more there. There's more substance, if you will, but I don't see the same value right now in Evan. He's not using his utility anywhere near as good as the other guys would. I just have questions. Well, I don't know if I was the one supposed to cast this game. Clippy was maybe gonna do it, and then I just said, you know what? I'm being paid. Scoot over. I love you though. And a 4-4. Once again, these things start so slow it feels for both sides, as they don't really like getting those. They get those entry picks first if they can, but otherwise they're very glad to take this as long as they need. Which, I mean, you know, I guess I don't like actively hate starting slow. I just think it kind of forces a very rushed back end of the half, which can work if you know what you're doing, if you're used to it, but we haven't seen that really good proficiency that I think you'd want to see. Aggressive swing comes in though. Dre does at least find the first with only a little bit amount of damage mounting his way. Extinct, the last one really having any type of resistance here upstairs. Dre's gonna be found by Stretch. Great C4 from him, and another shot going out. Extinct, the man upstairs, finds even more value and kind of stunts the attack now. With a minute 30 left, you're looking for more or less a miracle, as Matrix might be alive, so you have a shield, but no roam clear, no anything really. I don't know what was going on with that POV there. And Wilson finds one more. Maybe, just maybe, can 5.2 finally take the lead of a round, finally take something away. Finally have a chance at a real win. Finished off by a melee. Out of all things from Stretch. Timeout requested. You have just 1 minute to sully over your thoughts. I've been listening to the new Taylor Swift album, The Life of a Showgirl. And we're back with the third band coming in. Final bands themselves are relatively basic in nature. They do get the Monty and the Echo out of the way, so an anti-shield and a shield. I don't know.
Attackers need to locate and defuse bombs.
What in the world? There we go. I don't know why I couldn't click buttons. We're back. And actually back this time around. All right. Hopefully we have ourselves in overtime if we're lucky, but all signs kind of generally point towards what I'd call a less so expectation. But maybe, just maybe, 5.2 can find themselves 2 more rounds back to back and get an overtime, I guess, dodge, if you will. I mean, you lost badly. 7-1 is not a pretty loss, but maybe you can pull it back map 2. Maybe you can really save face and at least say, you know, we lost, but at least we came back. The scores certainly don't match up. I mean, the round differential is going to look pretty for no one, really. Even if you do win this, this isn't really a pretty win. This doesn't look great on the scoreboard stats overall. Tom the Bomber looks not great. Extinct is kind of